introduction. So, hi everyone, this is Lou Martin, and my podcast is called Awakened Spirits Network, and you're very welcome here. I'm an American guy living in West Cork, Ireland for the last 15 years, and I'm on with another American who's, I think, living in Sandwich, New Hampshire, if I have that right. The very talented, gifted, and multifaceted MJ Pettingill. Am I saying that right, MJ?
It's Pettengill,
Okay,
but
see, there we go. You learn something every day if you're not careful, as I like to say. So tell us a little bit about your many passions and pursuits, and we'll have a little chat here. How's that sound?
great.
Okay.
Well, I spent a good portion of my adult life as a professional musician, and a lot of that was devoted to Civil War music history.
Wow.
And I play the trumpet and E-flat cornet, and was a founder of a Civil War reenactment band and a serenade band. And I
Okay.
wanted this serenade band so that women could be portrayed instead of us all dressing up in our little kepis and sack coats. And I also had a 28-piece British brass band, and we used to do
Wow.
military tattoos and play mass pipes and that sort of thing. So that was fun. And then
Beautiful.
it was very meaningful. And so back in 2004, when I came across a very interesting site in a small town called Ospey, New Hampshire, it really took everything in my life and completely sort of flipped it around. It's a cemetery that has 298 numbered graves.
Right.
And so I saw it, and it was a very interesting, something I'd never seen before as
Yes.
far as the way it appeared. And so
Yeah.
I went to all the places that you would go to research and find out who was buried there. And I was told that, oh, it was the paupers, and it was back in the 1870s, and you're never going to find anything, so just forget about it. And so that really fueled my fire. I really thought,
Yes.
I can't forget about 298 souls.
Right.
so
Good for you.
so I spent about 5 months, 4 or 5 months, in the town hall searching for records, and I found 268 names of the people who are buried there.
Wow.
And so then I was really curious about, well, how did you become a pauper? And, who are these people
Yeah,
who were on the poor farm? That's what it was called, the county poor farm.
I see.
So, so I ended up my whole life just at that point in time, it was a calling, and I answered
Right.
that call, and that was to sort of acknowledge and remember people
Yeah.
who have been lost in our history.
Yeah.
And so at that same time, I had returned to college. And so this turned into my culminating thesis,
Wow.
was about poverty during that time.
Yeah.
And the records, there were no records. I found were papers in property assessment books,
Okay.
tax records, and they weren't records by the town. They were by this funeral home that had written everything down.
Okay.
So it was just something, when I first came across this site, I really felt a lot of sort of anguish and pain and sorrow. And so as time went on and I learned more about the people there,
Yeah.
and in general, that part of our social history in this country, it was very obvious that the more I found out, the more there was to learn. And
Okay.
also I felt better each time I would go back. I felt like we're getting there, we're making progress, you are going to be remembered.
Okay.
So
Wow.
and some of the people who were there, buried there,
Yeah.
they're called inmates, and
Wow.
they're literally sentenced to the county farm.
Wow.
And so all these things were, very important for me to comprehend.
Yeah.
And so some of the people who I was able to put together a sort of profile on these people,
Yeah.
one was in the records as an Indian woman, that's their words, and age 100.
Jesus.
So she really spoke to me in a way where I thought, that she could have so much of a rich background in history. And
Yeah.
my own family roots are on my father's side is Abenaki.
Okay.
So I thought this is a very good opportunity for me to also learn about my own customs and traditions that I hadn't, really known a lot about.
Sure.
And so she was someone who I really focused on. And then I want to go back a little bit. When I first made this discovery, I was still doing a lot of my musical presentations and Civil War presentations, and I was on the faculty of a music school. And so people were contacting me about the things that I did in the music world and the Civil War world. And then they started to have an interest in my county farm work.
Okay.
And so so that just became something that really transitioned everything for me. And I had a publisher at first we were all set up to do this as nonfiction. And I thought, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it right. So I went back to continued with school and got my MFA in writing and creative writing.
Wow.
So, but then I thought, if I just write this as sort of, a history book with all the facts and demographics and that sort of thing, it's just going to get shelved. And I felt like these souls would continue to go on, unacknowledged or remembered.
Right.
So I wrote it as a narrative.
Right.
And I thought I'm going to give them their voices to tell their stories.
Beautiful.
So the Native American woman is a healer and a midwife.
Right.
And that way I was also able to sort of slide in my information about the abundant local plant medicine. And I'm kind of known for that. And you can ask my kids, I always kind of slide the learning in there.
Good.
And so
that's called being a teacher, MJ.
Yeah.
Yes, dear. Yes. Yes.
So that it was fun because where I live in the White Mountains here, it's very abundant with healing plants. And so it was fun in a way of, and just very informative to take a knowledge that I was already on that path, but I just really enriched this information and practice just from my research.
Yeah.
And then another thing that happened was I was really moved by a few of the women who were buried there, who were young, 17-year-old unwed mother and that sort of thing. So I have a girl that's sort of representing them.
Okay.
And then I decided that, of course, I need a male perspective and someone who's sort of on the other side, the establishment sort of thing.
Sure.
So, because we can't, one of my big messages that I tell people in my discussions and presentations is it's not about judging the past. It's about acknowledging. It's about acknowledging.
Understand.
And so,
yeah.
So that's where the book sort of went from there. And there were so many lessons. One thing that really stood out to me when I first started to learn more and more about these places was it was evident that there is a great deal of collective shame and fear that has been it's gone through the generations historically, culturally, and in an ancestral way. Yeah. And people were really afraid of even having a discussion about this.
Wow.
There was a shutdown. It was, and that was very shocking to me. Yeah. And very obvious. And so one of the things that occurred that really sort of illuminated this is in that town where this is located, I had done some presentations and
Mhm.
musical programs.
Mhm.
And so it was kind of the elephant in the corner of the room because I
Right.
had been all around, but I hadn't talked about this in their town. So I got an email asking me if I would like to do my copper farm presentation. And so
Yeah.
I wrote back and told them, what I could do, what my schedule was. And then they emailed me back and said, oh, we had a meeting and we just don't want you to mention any names.
Oh,
And so I emailed them back and said, I can't do that because
yeah.
it's about the names. It's about the
Good,
names.
good for you.
So and I said, when you're ready for the names,
Yeah.
call me.
What did they do with that? What happened next?
So the following year, and these programs happen a lot here in summer, I got the email and it said, we had a meeting and we will allow you to mention the names.
Oh,
And I thought,
how nice.
progress.
Yeah. That took a year, huh? Took them a year.
It did.
Wow.
And so I will admit, I really went with it. At that time, one of my sons was in music conservatory. He's a professional violinist. And I asked him, do you think you could come up with something really heart-wrenching and deep and moving? And he composed a piece of music, Melancholia, for violin and piano.
Okay.
And it was perfect. So I had a presentation with the names at the end of my talk. It was the names slowly going up on this projector with music in the background.
Well, you gave them full measure, didn't you, my friend? You hit them with all you had. Wow, look at
I
you.
did.
Wow. Okay. While he's playing his heartbreaking music.
Yeah, I had it recorded, and it was appropriate. And so what?
I'm sure that was what they were thinking too. Yes.
I know. I have had in the
Bless
beginning
you.
though, there were people who were very they resisted it then. They were telling me it was a great place and this was incredible and it was really nice. And so I started to see this fear in the family connections where maybe at a certain time when they were unable to care for their loved ones or people with disabilities or whatever it was,
Yeah.
they would send them there and just sort of
Yeah.
not want to talk about it anymore.
And they were defending to you a century later what a wonderful place it was.
Yes, and I did bring it up. At first, I was taken off guard, and then I realized, okay, these people, they're elderly people who are talking now about the 50s and 60s, and that's not where my focus is. I'm
Sure,
talking about
sure.
the 1870s,
Yes.
and
Yes.
so that's where
Well,
it happened in that way.
you have grabbed my attention, storyteller. I'll tell you, that is gripping stuff.
Well,
Yeah, go on.
I felt like this whole thing, it was an opportunity for learning for me constantly. Even to this day, I'm on the fourth book. But
Yes.
so I thought, well, if my ancestors and people here that I have written about lived outside and, they literally were out in the woods without all the modern conveniences, I'm going to give this a shot.
Yeah.
And I've always been an outdoorsy person and that sort of thing, but this was different. This was, let's live out in the woods at a wildlife sanctuary place. We had permission to be here and have none of the conveniences of home.
You were talking about your current living situation and how you live.
While I was crafting the first book, this
I
was
see.
a few
Okay.
years back.
Okay.
So at first, and I had gone to a writing retreat and I was in Vermont, and then I went straight from there to this outdoor setting that I had planned. And at first I thought, I don't think I can handle this. I don't think I can do it. It was really rainy, really buggy. And I thought, like I have to be able to do this. So I ended up staying from June until the beginning of October. I ended up loving it. And then moving back into a house was actually difficult. I thought, oh my God, I'm not connected to the earth anymore. And I have to, because I was used to looking at the sky and just being out there. So that was very helpful in my own connecting to my ancestors and the person
Sure.
in the book who was writing
Sure.
that way.
Wow.
And I went to medicine caves, and I really feel like it was so important to be authentic
Yeah.
with representing these voices that I took it very seriously. And
Clearly. Yes, dear. Good for you. Wow.
so
No, that's
that
extraordinary. That is amazing, MJ. Wow. What a whole soul commitment, as you said, to being a channel for a whole generation of people who you just met in a graveyard one day, basically. They were just numbers in a graveyard.
yeah, they were. And then I started giving more and more of my presentations, and what was very motivating and something that I really liked a lot was when people were able to find missing members of their family tree,
Right.
and people who had no idea what happened to them. And also I had other towns and other counties and states actually looking up their county farms, which is in the order of things.
Right.
We started out with the town farms, and in the early 1870s, it just went on a county level, taking care of our poor. So
Right. I'm
I
with you.
was really happy when people would contact me and say, oh, well, we read your book, or we watched this, or we
Yep.
went to your seminar, and now we are starting our own genealogy project with finding out, places where there are all these numbered souls.
Right.
And that was a very rewarding part of this, is to sort of, being remembering people from all over.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. And be a bridge for people to remember their ancestors' histories and bring it all alive again.
yeah, and to me, I feel like it's almost like a freeing, sort of a liberating thing, is to be able to identify people,
Yeah.
and that way they're able to through the acknowledgement. To me, it was a freeing type situation.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, as you said, I mean, so it really started, you said 1870, just after the end of the Civil War,
Yes.
and the Reconstruction and all of that,
Hmm.
and you have a great little excerpt here, One More Chance to Pray, on your
Hmm.
page. Would
Okay.
you want to read that, or do you want me to read that, or I'm happy to read it, or have you do
Yeah,
it?
I think it would be good if you read it.
Okay, hun.
That would be a treat for me.
Okay, great. I'm happy to. You're a treat for me, so it's only fair. Great. So, which book is this from? Is it the first one?
I would have to.
Sure.
I think it's from this. I think it's from the second book.
Okay, just
I have
curious.
to look at my
Yeah.
blog and
And
see.
your series is called Etched in Granite.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And then something that I'll explain
Yeah.
before we do this is, I thought it was just going to be one book, one novel, and there are just so many stories attached to it
Yeah.
that one thing that happens is, around the third or fourth chapter, Abigail, the unwed mother,
Yeah.
her sister gets on a train and goes to Fall River, Mass, and works in the textile mills.
Okay.
And that was an opportunity for me to look into the situation with young people and child labor, and also the immigration, the situation of people coming from Ireland and Portugal, and basically all over Canada, to work in the mills. And what was interesting to me, I remember when I was working on that particular part of the book, I thought, where is Sarah going to come from? Is she going to come from Lowell? Because we know so much about Lowell and the mills. I said, or Fall River. And this is where my intuition came in. And I said, I'm going to say Fall River.
Okay.
Because we don't hear very much about Fall River. And I thought, there's got to be a reason for this. So, excuse me, the people who work at the historical society, they were very helpful. And they gave me a lot of information. But what I noticed is it seems like the real focal point in Fall River is Lizzie Borden.
Oh,
And so there's so
yeah.
much about Lizzie Borden. And
Yeah.
so I went down into their archives and I thought, it almost seems like a distraction because Fall River was
I think you're a
the,
good detective, my friend. I think you've got
yeah,
a good nose for the truth. Yeah.
the mill city in the world at that time,
Was what now? Say
second to
again.
Manchester, England.
It was the biggest mill
Fall
city?
River was yeah, it was the second largest. Oh, it just
Okay.
said my connection is a little unstable.
That's okay. I have you now. Yeah.
And I just thought, wow, if this is the second largest mill city in the world at this point in time, right in the 1870s, then why do we not know more about this? And so I had a very good experience learning about this. There were times when it was overwhelming and I had to sit with the things that I was learning.
Sorry, hon, why was it overwhelming? I mean, I have a suspicion, but, can you give us a,
Well, I was really blown away by how many of these positions in the mills were children.
yes,
And they really worked hard,
sure,
according to the records that you see, dealing with child labor and labor
right,
laws.
right,
And I also, in the first book, the girl's mother, a lot of people wanted to know more about her. So I use this opportunity again to get into the famine. I call it the famine and exile from Ireland
yeah,
to this part of the world, Canada. And my father's side of the family came here that way.
so did mine.
And yeah, and
Yeah,
they went from Ireland to Canada and then down to
right,
the US. So
yeah,
I spent a lot of time reading accounts of that are not from mainstream history books, and a
good.
lot of diaries. Yeah, I know, really.
Yeah,
A lot of diaries and letters. And so that is a very big part of the second book is
okay,
the mother of the girls and her journey from Ireland to ending up in the US and New England.
right, right,
And so there were times when I would read about conditions, circumstances, and my heart was just bleeding all over the place for this, because sometimes another distraction seems to come to mind for me, and that is the potatoes.
okay.
So we have, to me, yes, that was part of everything, but I think there is much more to it.
Oh God, yes.
And so I pull all these
Let me
strands
tell
in
you,
there.
you're on to the truth. Yeah, I didn't know this. Really, I didn't know any of this until I came to Ireland. Potato famine? What are you talking about? There were 4,000 ships of food being exported to England every year.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, so they were sitting in the ports with starving people able to
yeah,
see them and not being able to
yeah,
get there. So there was a lot of that. And the other thing that I was really starting to get a clear sense of, I know that there are this alternative history. There's so many different ways of looking at things, but I didn't realize how much of it was just so almost far-fetched or simplified. And
well, let me help you, dear. Dishonest, I think, is the word you're reaching for.
I'm trying to be so.
I know you're being very feminine, but we'll just cut to the chase in this case. Bless you. Yeah.
Well, and then something that was very startling to me is when the ships would go down to Canada and they would go down the St. Lawrence River. And so there's a place, and I might not be saying it correctly, Grosse Isle. And so it's a lot like this cemetery here that I discovered. It's, as far as you can see, there are crosses of people who came from Ireland and here, and they didn't make it.
Right.
And on one, there's a big Celtic cross, and on one side is something written in English, on the other side something is written in Celtic
Gaelic.
or Gaelic,
Gaelic, yeah.
and
Yeah.
they don't match up. They
Yeah.
don't match up.
Big shot. Yeah. Big
Yeah,
shot. Yeah.
but it's right there side by side. So I was really blown away by that. So I have that part of the story comes into play, and a lot of I have a character who I wanted to bring the orphan trains into this, and so there's a young man who lived in the 5 Points part of New York,
Yes.
and then was on the orphan trains, and he ended up in Fall River as a lamplighter, which is a hugely respectable job for someone that he has been through so much.
Okay.
So I'm able to bring all these parts of our history in through the people's voices, and the orphan train, just in case anyone's wondering, they weren't called orphan trains in real time.
No.
That was a romantic title or term for it in the much later years. So
and why were they called orphan trains? Because they were filled with orphans? Or?
Yeah, they if you read the beautiful, rosy, embellished stories about the orphan trains,
I see.
there was a minister, his name was Loring Brace, and he would put a lot of these programs in place, and he was claiming to take mostly boys, but take them off the streets and ship them out to at first it was the Midwest, and then as this country developed, they were going further west. There were over 200,000 orphans that went on these trains.
Oh.
And when someone asked Reverend Brace, well, why are there so many boys and hardly any girls that are being sent out? And he said that the girls were not redeemable. Wow. So these are the kind of things I used to have to sit with, and I'm getting better at it though. The things like that have I'm much better now. And
whoa.
So
yeah, go on.
They would go out, and so say a train was going to end up somewhere in Ohio or something. They would have a big poster, and it would say how many boys they have on the train, and it was what they were good for, their size, their experience.
And they would sell these kids basically when they got to town?
People signed up for certain children or helpers or whatever, but it comes through the history books, in the earlier history books, as if this was a very caring, awesome, amazing thing to save the children. But then things are starting to come out more and more about what this really was.
Can you imagine? I mean, it's a nightmare for a kid,
And then they were trying to get away. They were trying to hide from the people who were taking them. And so, this is just another part of our past that was not recorded accurately. And and then the other thing is, but I'm sure that there were some good situations. There were some kids who ended up in better homes or better places, but that wasn't, to me, from what I've read and what I understand, that was not really the intention and the goal. It was, to me, it's all about child labor, and it's very obvious. And the term reform school, this is where it comes from, this era. It wasn't, now we think of reform school as you take a child or a juvenile who has gotten in trouble, and then they go to reform school to get straightened out, but that's not what it was originally. It was, let's teach these boys some skills. Let's teach them how to swing a hammer. And and it's also, charity begins at home. That came from this time period. Here are these kids, we're going to send them out to you. So there's a lot that is out there.
Yeah. Well, that's MJ, you blow my mind, honestly. I mean, it's I consider myself pretty well read, and I love fiction. I've read fiction my whole life. Um,
Mhm.
and American history, is dear to my heart as well. But I'm sure you know Howard Zinn and the People's
Mhm.
History of the United States, and of
Mhm.
course Noam Chomsky and a few other of these names. Cornell West. These are the people that I've listened to over the years, and
Mhm.
there's probably a dozen others. And basically what they're doing, what you're doing, which is a great service to all of us, which is to actually understand what the truth was and to look past the propaganda, which
Mhm.
has suddenly become the survival theme of our day one more time, over the last few years, I'd say. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, let me just share a little bit of your writing with people here if I can.
Great.
Okay, so this is called "One More Chance to Pray," and I love your beautiful photo of the girl here. And this is from MJ Pettingill's series, etched in concrete. I am with child. My temples pounded. All strength was gone. The fire crackled. Moses spoke in a deep, quiet voice. I never thought I'd hear them words from you, Abigail. Sinner! You're a sinner! Her sewing clattered to the floor when she bolted out of her chair. I knew that you was hiding something. If your mother knew you, she would cry in shame. Do not mention my mother's name. Then came a surge of pain, anger, and guilt that was so twisted up I couldn't tell one from the other. I fell to my knees before Moses' feet. I want nothing more than to be restored to a state of favor and acceptance. I grieve for my mother. I've blackened my name. I poured forth my soul in tears, but the Blakes had deemed me a sinner. You will pack what few belongings you have, and Moses will take you to the county farm. She folded her arms over her chest and looked up at the ceiling, trying to rustle up some tears. Oh, the shame! It was simply a matter of time. I looked into Moses' eyes for a shred of compassion. I dreaded telling you. Who is the father? He should come forward and marry you. Although he scowled, Moses remained kind. The father? I bit my lip and tried to erase the vision of Silas from my mind's eye. I do not know. What do you mean you don't know? He stood up. She ain't telling the truth, Mrs. Blake said. I was going for a long ride one afternoon and I stopped at a brook by the new railroad tracks. I was watering my horse when a strong man of middle age came out of the woods and chased me. I covered my face with my apron and sobbed as if there were no end to it. He had his way with you against your will? Mrs. Blake was high pitched. Excuse me, I dropped the soaked apron. Yes. I wiped my nose on the sleeve of my blouse. He fled into the woods and I never saw him again. Did you tell anyone? Moses puffed up his chest. No, I was scared. Did you get a good look at him? He clenched his fists. No, I did not. The little girl in me spoke. Well, we ain't got a choice but to send her to the farm, Moses, Mrs. Blake said. Hold on, he said. Let's think on it. There ain't no question about it. I won't have no unwed mother living under this roof. She waved a fist in the air. I will go. I don't want to bring shame on anyone. This is my burden and mine alone. My thoughts turned to Silas. Moses will take you after church tomorrow. She went into the kitchen. Give you one more chance to pray for your soul. You understand we ain't got no choice in the matter, Moses said. Yes, sir. My body took to shaking at that awful moment. Now go on to bed. You can pack your belonging in that treasure chest of yours. I dashed into the dark hallway and stumbled up the stairs. The moonlight streamed through the window, lighting up a room in a dreamlike manner. I dragged out the treasure chest, grabbed Hope, and clutched her to my chest. I wept until there were no more tears to shed, until the silence of the morning, without Pearl, was upon me. Abigail Hodgson, November 23rd, 1872. Very good. I hope I did that justice. That was fun.
Yeah, you did. Thank you
You're
for
welcome.
reading that.
Sure.
Well, I just one of the reasons I wanted her voice is just to show how in one instant, we can find ourselves in a completely different path than where we set out.
Sure, sure.
And so for her, during that time when there was a lot of judgment and very dense and rigid sort of religious
Oh
ways of
yeah,
being.
yeah. Well, we have. I don't know how closely you might follow the current events in Ireland, but we've had a similar story here about children. A mass grave was discovered near a children's home recently with hundreds of children in the grave. Did you hear about this story? Sorry, I lost your audio. Oh, yeah. Where am I?
How's that?
That's
Can you
good.
hear me?
Yeah, you're good. Yeah.
Was this, I don't know if I'm saying this right. Is this in Tuam, Tuam,
Yeah, that sounds
Ireland?
right. Yes, yes. Tuan. Yes, Tuan.
Mhm. Okay, I
Yeah,
didn't know how to
Tuan.
say that.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, actually, I did hear about that, and that's being incorporated into the fourth book,
Oh,
because
okay.
the Magdalene laundries were present. I know that in Ireland and the UK, there were more of them, and that's sort of where things began in that way.
Yeah,
But they did have them in the United States, and there was one in the Boston area.
right.
And so I thought, well, I'm gonna talk about that. So there's a
Yeah.
girl who goes down, and so I am aware of it. And I think we're living in a time now where the veil really is thinning, and we are finding out more of these stories, more of these things that need to be free. There's a freeing and
Yeah.
sort of a healing going on with this
Yeah.
acknowledgement. So
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful.
um
The truth
yeah,
the truth sets us free, but it often pisses us off first, is my
yeah,
joke about it, you know.
absolutely,
Yeah.
definitely.
Brilliant. Well, that's good. I mean, I'm just so grateful to connect with you about all this, but I want to give you a little space to talk about your love of nature and herbs and how you use that. This is one of your. I wouldn't feel I did you justice if we didn't talk about your herbalism and your knowledge of all that.
Well, I practice wildcrafting.
Okay.
So about 90% of what I have in my wildcraft apothecary, it's everything that I have right here that grows here on the property. So the only thing that I purchased are, carrier oils and things to tincture and that sort of thing.
So, what is
So
wildcrafting for those of us that never heard that term before?
it's foraging. It's going out and actually gathering and collecting the plant material on your own,
Great.
and uh, so that it's just been incredible because there's just so much here. It's abundant
Right. Right.
with plant medicine, and I'm in my little studio right now, and
Right.
and
Lovely.
so I'm here, and people come to me for really basic things. A lot of times people will, because I don't actually give out advice or anything that I believe it's something that should be diagnosed by a professional, but people will come to me when they are looking for something specific or the basic things. And right now it's all about keeping your immune system boosted and fortified. So I've been, really focused on that. And the other thing is just the history of it. I like to not only be involved in the plant medicine part of things, but I like to know the background. What were some of the beliefs that in the magic and the sacredness of these plants? And I did struggle when I first did this, because to me it is very sacred, and it's all about a knowing and a connection that we have with the earth. And I felt like when it comes to charging and having these commercial type events, I just have try to make it so that I'm that woman in the woods, and people who need to find me, find me.
Right.
And I just can't get into the commercial aspect of things or anything gimmicky, or
Sure.
there have been people who stop in. I live, for the older people who might know, there was a movie made here called On Golden Pond,
Sure.
and it's gorgeous. This is a beautiful area. I feel so blessed to be here.
Right.
But people might stop in thinking that this would be really cool to find something, I don't know, just as like a souvenir or something. And I'm so
No.
not there at all.
No, darling, you're the real deal, my friend. You say when you use the word sacred, you know, and you're spending a good portion of your life searching for the truth, you know, to give some kind of peace and justice to the ancestors. You know, I'd say you're a powerful medicine woman, deserving of our love and respect and support. And I'm just thrilled to get to meet you and hear all this.
I'm glad to be here.
Sure, pleasure. Well, we'll put your links for your novels there, and anything else you want to say as we come down the home stretch here? Anything else you want to leave us with today? It's been a feast.
Well, I'm really grateful. I don't believe in coincidences, and when my path changed and I really connected to the ancients and the ones before me, I feel like it's a blessing and a gift, and it's about knowledge and sharing that with each other, and it's also about sovereignty and really being in your own power as much as possible, and for us to stick together right now. And these are such incredible times, and I just feel so much gratitude to be able to be here and aware of what grows around us, and my connection to the plants, the animals, and that really sustains me.
Mm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I hope that everyone is well and continues to stay strong in themselves and their sovereignty. I think that's number one.
Yeah, I agree. May I ask, MJ, are you doing this on your own? Do you have a partner, family? How do you?
I have a partner, and I have
Good.
I've been with him for a long time, and I have my children are here.
Okay.
Actually, two of them are here. One is lives out on the West Coast, but
okay.
So
becoming an actor or a movie rock star or something?
No, actually, he's in the military, and he has been for a long time. He's an engineer.
Okay.
And my other son just moved to this area. He's a professional violinist.
Wow.
And my daughter, she's this really amazing singer-songwriter, and she spent a lot of time traveling around the country, sort of in a Woody Guthrie sort of way, which I know that's not what she would want me to say, but she had her banjo and her dogs in her backpack, and that's
right.
Violin. And
sounds Woody Guthrie to me, but you know, we're that generation. You know, she's doing she's inventing it for herself. Good for her. Wow. Well, thank you, MJ. It's just really been a joy. Pleasure. I hope we'll do this again, and I will send you the link, and you send me your links, and we'll get some people to read your great work and support your path there. It's a pleasure. Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day. Thanks again.
You too. Thanks.
Okay, dear. Bye for now.
Bye.